Hey guys, welcome back to Let's Talk About It, the podcast where we talk about mental health in a real, relatable, and judgment free way. I'm your host, Christina, and today we are diving into something that people ask me about all the time: EMDR therapy. So, if you ever heard somebody say, yeah, my therapist waved their fingers around and suddenly I cried for 3 hours and just healed all my childhood trauma, this episode might be for you. Honestly, EMDR can sound a little weird at first, but it's actually one of the most researched and effective trauma therapies that there is. So, what even is EMDR? Let's kind of start simple. So, EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which sounds super clinical and intimidating, but basically, EMDR is a therapy approach that helps your brain process stuck memories, trauma, distressing experiences, or even negative beliefs about yourself. A lot of times, people think trauma only means huge, catastrophic events, but trauma can actually be a lot of things. Trauma can look like childhood emotional neglect, bullying, toxic relationships, medical trauma, losing someone, panic attacks, being constantly criticized, growing up, feeling unsafe emotionally or physically. Basically, any experience that your nervous system never fully was able to process. So, how does it work? So, here's the easiest way I try to explain EMDR to clients. I'm not very good at it, I feel like sometimes. So, your brain naturally knows how to heal, kind of like your body does. If you scrape your knee, your body works to heal it, right? But if something gets stuck in the wound, it can't heal correctly. It can get infected, it can really hurt, cause you distress later on in life. So trauma is kind of similar to that. Sometimes memories get stuck in the brain with the emotions, the body sensations, the fear, the shame, or even the beliefs that might be attached to them. So that's why years later, something small can trigger a huge emotional reaction. And some people don't understand that. They're like, why am I acting this way? Or like the person, maybe you're arguing with a person and they do something that triggers that wound and they're like, you're acting like a 3-year-old. And it's like, you literally can't help it. Like your brain is stuck in that spot. I mean, I've talked about this in another episode. So when something happens at a certain age, if a traumatic event or something happens, it's like our brain literally gets stuck there. So say like something traumatic happened when you were 13. Well, if that gets triggered, that wound gets triggered, you literally act as if you're that 13-year-old child because you're stuck there, right? So it makes sense why you're having that big reaction. So EMDR can help your brain reprocess those memories so that they feel a lot less emotionally charged. It doesn't make it go away. I want to clarify that. It does not make the memory go away. You're not going to forget everything. It's not like I'm going to wave my fingers and do some like voodoo magic and you're just going to be magically cured and healed and everything's going to be erased. It doesn't work like that, right? But it can help you to move past that and to be able to look at it and not have those same reactions or to have those same fears or feelings related to that event. It can help you get unstuck. So let's address the eye movement thing, right? Everybody wonders about that. No, I'm not hypnotizing you. Like I just said, I'm not doing some kind of voodoo magic on you, right? That's not how this works. EMDR uses something called bilateral stimulation, which simply means activating both sides of the brain back and forth. So this can look like following fingers with your eyes, tapping, sounds in headphones, hand buzzers. There's a lot of different ways, actually. Like I've even seen someone do it with like a video controller. While you're doing that, you briefly focus on parts of the memory or the feeling. And over time, your brain starts processing things differently. So people often say things like, that memory just doesn't feel as intense anymore, or I finally understand it differently. I don't blame myself as much now, or my body doesn't panic the same way it did now. So those are some things that you can kind of move past. I took the EMDR training last year and it was really cool. During like the practice though, I had to do it on someone and then they had to do it on me. It's crazy. And so I know that it works because I had it done on me And when we went into it, they were like, make sure you pick something that's like light. And so I tried to stick with light things. Like at the time, we hadn't bought our house yet. And so I was like, I'm going to do it on my fear of buying a house. Well, the person did it on me, and the next thing I know, I was like crying in a room full of people, um, because apparently, my fear of buying a house was related to other things I didn't even realize it was related to, right? Like it took me all the way back to childhood, and I started processing all these things, and it correlated with my fear of buying a house, which is so crazy to me, right? And I think it worked. Like I know it worked because I think it was like a month. I don't think it was a month, like maybe 2 or 3 months later, we bought a house. Like I'm in my house right now doing this podcast. Like I'm in my new house. And that was something I was really struggling to commit to buying our first home. And so it really helped me to be able to get unstuck from that and that negative belief that, I wasn't good enough to buy a house or I wasn't capable and to move past it and actually get our first house. Like it's amazing. So EMDR can truly be life changing. And I say that from a place of personal experience because it has changed my life. Now, not to say there's not other things I need to process because there's definitely still stuff there. And that's the thing with EMDR. You might process one event or one belief, and there might be a bunch of other ones that you still have to go through. That's another thing with EMDR. A lot of people come to me to do it, and I think, they think they're going to come to me. We're going to see each other a session or two. We're going to do the eye movement thing or whatever, and then they're going to be cured, and they're not going to have to come to therapy anymore. That is not true about EMDR. It's a very long process. It takes a lot of sessions. There's no set amount of sessions because it depends on the state of the trauma, how much you've been through, whether it's complex or whether it's not. It can take a long time sometimes to get through the EMDR. And then sometimes, something else comes up or we have to take breaks and do, more like cognitive behavioral therapy and then come back to the EMDR and things like that. And so there's a lot more to it than a lot of people realize. And so I definitely want to clarify that too. It's not a magic fix and it's a long-term thing. It can take some time. So what can EMDR help with? EMDR is commonly used for PTSD and trauma, but it honestly can help with so much more than that. It can help with anxiety, panic attack, phobias, grief, low self-esteem, people pleasing, attachment wounds, relationship trauma, childhood trauma, performance anxiety, those negative core beliefs. I'm not good enough. I'm unsafe. I'm unlovable. I'm a failure. All those things. EMDR can try to help you work through those things. So it's really an amazing thing and can be used in a wide variety of things. I don't knock my microphone over. Um, and no, this another thing I want to clarify is you do not have to remember every detail perfectly for EMDR to work. I have a lot of people come to me to do EMDR because they can't remember things. And something else I want to clarify too, though. I think some people come to EMDR because they think it'll help them remember things, and it can. When I was doing my personal experience, some things popped up for me that I kind of blocked out or that I had forgot even, which was amazing. But I want to clarify, it doesn't always work that way. So I don't want anyone coming in here expecting that to happen and then it not happen because sometimes it can and sometimes it can't. It just depends on, your neural network, what it's connected to, and what your brain has stored in there. So what does EMDR feel like? I want people to know, again, EMDR is not magic and it's not always easy. Sometimes sessions feel really emotional. Sometimes people feel lighter afterwards, sometimes tired, or sometimes their brain keeps processing after session. So before jumping straight into trauma processing, therapists will usually spend time building coping skills, grounding tools, safety, and trust first. That's actually one of the phases in MDR before you can even start. You do like grounding mechanism, things like that, making sure you have that safe place to go to in case your emotions get heightened because they're probably going to, and that is the truth. I'm not saying this to scare anyone away from it because I think everyone can benefit from EMDR. I think it's a wonderful thing. But it's sometimes can be one of those things, like, it gets worse before it gets better, because sometimes you are reopening those wounds, and you have to be prepared for that, and that's why it's really important that you, stay in therapy and you stay coming to your sessions, that way you have a professional to check in on you, because it can be a really tough thing to go through. Healing is not, um, about, ripping people open emotionally and then sending them home overwhelmed either. After our EMDR sessions, the ones I do with my clients, I always want to make sure that we end on a good note. Maybe not a good note. I don't want to say that because sometimes we do end on hard things, but that we always end in enough time to allow us to check in, see how you're feeling, do some grounding mechanisms, some deep breathing, whatever it is to make sure that you feel like you're in a good enough space to go home. You're not always going to feel perfect. You might feel kind of sad. Some things are going to come up, but you know, that's part of the healing process, unfortunately. I always try to tell my clients if they can. I know we have obligations and responsibilities, and this isn't always possible. But if you can, to the day that you know you're going to do your EMDR session, especially the first couple ones, try to keep like a light day. If you can take off work, if you can kind of have it easy at home, not do a lot of chores, because it can be draining. Like it can make you really tired emotionally and even physically. And so if you can, just try to take it easy. Um, Another thing that pops up a lot, some people after doing EMDR, they'll report like weird dreams. And that's okay. It sucks if they're bad dreams, right? But that's normal. When we sleep and when we're dreaming, sometimes that's our brain's way of slowing down and processing things. So if we're doing EMDR and we're bringing things up, sometimes your dreams will be related to that. Some weird dreams that maybe you're not used to having, and that's okay. Just make sure, that you talk to your therapist about that and, check in, make sure that you're feeling safe and all those things. So, some common myths about EMDR. Myth one: EMDR erases memories. Like I said, no, you're still going to remember what happened. The goal is just to no longer make sure that it controls you the same way, right? Myth two: you have to talk about every detail. That is also not true. EMDR actually can involve less verbal retelling than traditional talk therapy. And that is true. Um, EMDR is very different. And I go over all this with my clients. I'm like, I don't want you to think I don't care, that I'm a bad therapist, but EMDR is very structured. You literally have to go off a script to make sure that your brain is processing things correctly. And so what happens is, you do the eye movements, and then I'm gonna say, what came up, how are you feeling? You're gonna tell me, and then I'm not really gonna say much. If you're in a huge distress or something like that, I will stop and talk to you, make sure you're okay before we continue processing. But usually I'm just gonna say go with that, and we're gonna keep going. And usually the eye movements, if you're doing it virtual, there's like a ball you follow, tap in, different ways you can do it. Usually 15 to 20 seconds, typically. And now there is other forms of EMDR too. We have the standard, the restricted, things like that. That way, sometimes people come to me and they're like, well, I want to work on this thing, but I don't want all these other things to pop up that I know are related to that. And so there is a way you can do that as well by doing the restricted processing. And that's just, the script is a little different. And then the bilateral stimulations are a little less. That way your brain doesn't go into deeper processing. But you don't have to talk a lot. You just have to tell me what you're seeing. I say go with that, and then we keep going, because if we stop it, your brain kind of stops that processing phase, and we don't want it to stop. So that's why it moves kind of fast, and we don't talk a whole lot until after the end, and then we'll process it together. So that is a myth. You don't have to tell me every detail or talk a ton in EMDR therapy. Myth three: EMDR is only for severe trauma. No, like I said, little experiences can create big wins too. So I don't want you to ever think that what you went through or how you're feeling doesn't matter, because sometimes things are traumatic that we don't realize were traumatic. So if something is really bothering you or something keeps coming up, I want you, if you're seeing a therapist, to discuss that with them. And that's another thing. You obviously don't want to do EMDR in yourself. I don't even know how people do that, but I've heard of people trying to get on YouTube and doing it. Do not encourage that. You need to be with a professional that is licensed and trained in it to help guide you through it. Because like I said, EMDR is a very real thing, and it can be very hard. And you need to make sure you have the proper coping mechanisms, the proper person to go through it with you, and the proper support to guide you through it. So please don't do any of those things. I don't even know what they are or where they are, what they're called, but I just know that they're out there. I've heard of them, and I highly, highly encourage you not to do that. I know therapy is expensive. I get it. I promise, but I would rather you wait till you can find one to help you through that than to try to do it on yourself, please. So, one thing I wish more people understood in this is sometimes, again, people just think they're being traumatic or too sensitive when really their nervous system has just been carrying unprocessed pain for years. And your reactions actually make sense when your story is fully understood. Again, so EMDR can be really effective for that. Another thing with EMDR, you want to feel safe with the person you're doing it with. So I have a lot of people like literally schedule sessions with me just for EMDR. And I try to tell them, like, I want you to feel safe and comfortable enough to open up to me because you're going to be telling me a lot of personal things. So I usually recommend if you're a new client, us talk, for at least a couple sessions, really more than that, depending on how comfortable you feel opening up to me. Because if you don't feel safe and you don't feel comfortable with someone, your brain's not going to allow you to process it. Even if you want it to, your brain is going to be alarming you. You're not safe. We can't talk to this person. This isn't a safe space. And so again, it's not something you just jump in. It's something that does take time and you want to be in a safe place when you're doing it. Like if you're doing it virtually, you want to make sure if you're at your house or wherever you are, you're in a room where you feel comfortable by yourself, no distractions, things like that, because it can mess with the processing. I understand when you're doing it from home, things happen. Like when I'm doing sessions, my dog's barking, or sometimes you'll hear a car or something in the background, and sometimes we can't help those things. And sometimes they can add to the processing. Like when I was in training, she talked about an experience where like there was a baby crying and they were afraid it was going to distract her, but actually that baby crying like alerted her brain of a memory that she needed to process. So sometimes distractions can be a good thing too, but I always try to make sure you're in a space where you feel comfortable. I know, sometimes we don't feel comfortable opening up if like our partner's there or our kids are there, things like that, and we think they can hear us. So if you can, and that's not always possible, just try to make sure you're in a safe environment whenever you're doing things like that. And no, I want to clear this up because I've had clients do this. You cannot do it while you're driving. EMDR is not something you can do when you're driving. It takes your full attention. You're going to have to follow my fingers, the tapping, the ball, whatever it is we choose to do. And you cannot be driving when you do this. It is highly unsafe. You have to be in a still, stationary environment. And with the EMDR also, I've had clients ask, you cannot do audio phone call. It does have to be, either face-to-face in person, or if it's virtual, you need to be, where I can see you on video. So we would need to do like a telehealth platform. I cannot talk today. That's HIPAA compliant, of course, and confidential and all those things. And there's a couple of different platforms I use for that. There's platforms I use for EMDR specifically as well. So if you've ever been curious about EMDR, I hope this episode helped make it feel a little less intimidating, a little more human, and it gave you some more insight and knowledge on how it works. There's a lot more to it, and if you schedule a session, your therapist will go over all the details with you, things like that. Like sometimes I send my clients videos on YouTube of examples of sessions and things like that, so they can kind of get a feel for how it works to make sure it's right for them before we go into it. And that's often really helpful as well. So there are those you can look up. Um, so healing isn't about pretending bad things never happen. Just a reminder. It's about helping your brain and body finally realize you survived them. So I hope this episode was helpful. As always, thank you guys for hanging out with me and talking about mental health with me. I appreciate the support so much. If this episode helped you, please share it with somebody who may need it. Post it to your stories or send me topics you'd love to hear next. I got some ideas. I got some people scheduled. I got some good things coming up. But I'm always open to new ideas and new intakes and input and things like that. I am still taking inquiries. It's pinned to the Facebook page. If you want to submit it there. If you can't find it or you need help, send me a message and I'll help guide you through that as well. I did want to come on here and say, I posted it on my Facebook page. I don't know how many of you seen it. I will be taking a small break to work on the podcast some to make it better for you all, such as like, sound quality, new equipment, working on the way, like the forms and things like that to make it easier to navigate and all those things. It's growing and I want to make sure that, we have the things we need to make it more effective for you all as well. And so I want to grow as it grows as well. When I first started this, I was literally just a girl trying to figure it out. I've purchased, I think, like 10 different microphones, all kinds of equipment. And I'm like, no, this ain't going to work. No, I need this. And so I'm trying to figure out the right thing. I'm sure the next thing I get, the things I'm planning on getting, probably aren't going to be perfect either. I try to be real with you. I try to be human. I'm not perfect. I'm not professional in a sense. Um, and I want to make this as relatable and to you all as I can. And I always want to be honest and open with you and vulnerable because I think people need to hear that. So I am. I'm working on trying to get the correct equipment to make the sound quality and all those things a little bit better as I do my research and as I learn and as I grow. So I hope you stick around to watch it grow and all those things. Until next time, take care of yourselves, drink your water, set your boundaries, and remember, healing doesn't have to be perfect to count.